Welcome students. I hope you all are doing good. In this presentation, I am going to explain you chapter 1, part 1 towards the modern period. My dear students, before beginning up with the presentation, let's understand what are the contents that I am going to explain you in part 1. First, introduction. Second, source materials. Third, changes in Europe. Fourth, the Renaissance. Fifth, Protestant Reformation movement. And sixth, role of Martin Luther. So let's begin with the introduction. What is modern period? Actually, the term modern period refers to relatively recent times. This period came to be characterized by changes such as the expansion of trade, industrialization, urbanization, swift transport and communication, widespread literacy, democratic political systems based on the ideas like liberty and equality, and large-scale migration of people in search of new occupations. These changes began in Europe around the 15th century AD. And were ushered in by events such as the Renaissance, voyages of discovery, and the Industrial Revolution. Gradually, the changes in Europe had an impact on other parts of the world. Europeans' expansion into other parts of the world led to the spread of modernization. However, it was accompanied by plunder, occupation of territories, exploitation, intrigues, wars, and political subjugation. The colonization of Africa and Asia was a result of this process. My dear students, the various events and changes which happen in the modern periods are studied with the help of wide range of source materials. Source materials are of two types, namely primary and secondary. When we talk about these source materials, they are required to study the history of the modern period. So with that, my dear students, let's understand what are primary sources. Primary sources provide first-hand accounts of the events, practices, or conditions that we are studying. They may be in different forms. One is the literary sources, second is archaeological sources. When we talk about literary source materials, the examples it includes are original official documents, administrative records, official letters, survey reports, and non-official documents such as personal letters, diaries, newspaper reports, and works of literature. Archaeological remains such as coins, inscription, and land grants on copper plates, armaments, and artifacts. The second source is the secondary sources. They are usually in the form of work of historians and scholars who arrive at conclusions after carefully studying the primary sources. Their works may be in the form of reports, reviews, articles, or books. Films based on true incidents with supporting evidence from primary source materials may be treated as secondary sources. Dear students, let us briefly study the developments in Europe that led to this modernization. So first happened is changes in Europe. What happens? Society in actually medieval Europe was based on the feudal system, in which land was owned by lords who provided protection to the peasants who worked on their lands. Even the lord paid taxes to the king or provided him with soldiers. Thus, land was the main source of livelihood, and political power was exercised by the king, the feudal lords, and the church. Another changes also happened in Europe in the form of Crusades. The Crusades, or holy wars between the Christians and the Muslims between the 11th century and 13th centuries, had far-reaching effects on European feudal society. The interaction between the Europeans and the Arabs opened up trade contacts between them, resulting in the emergence of a class of wealthy merchants. They settled in major trade centers which grew into large cities like London, Paris, Rome, Venice, Milan, and Genoa. The people living in these cities were outside the control of feudal lords and their laws. The wealthy merchant class, along with the professionals like doctors, lawyers, and teachers, exercised a lot of influence in the society. They formed a new group in the society, the middle class, who were neither feudal lords nor the common masses. In time, the size and importance of middle class grew, and it became the most influential section of society. They supported strong rulers and helped them establish new states that were free from feudal controls. They also encouraged learning and inquiry. An event of great historical significance occurred in 1453, when the Ottoman Turks occupied Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. It was not only a great center of classical Greek and Latin learning, but was also at the crossroads of the trade. First, the artists and scholars fled to Italy, where they were encouraged to pursue their art and studies. Secondly, the overland route to the east was also blocked, which disrupted trade. With that, it is being followed by the Renaissance and Protestant Reformation. So my dear student, let's begin with the Renaissance. The Renaissance. In medieval Europe, the church allowed very little freedom of thought to the individual, but the revival of Greek and Latin learning led to a cultural movement called the Renaissance. Renaissance, which means rebirth in French, began in Italy and spread to other parts of Europe between the 14th and 16th centuries. Renaissance was noted for two main features: the spirit of scientific inquiry and humanism. Let's understand these two important features of Renaissance. The spirit of scientific inquiry is the urge to ask questions and to seek answers in the scientific method through observation, experiments, and logical thinking. By applying the scientific methods, the scholars made many new inventions and discoveries. They acquired new knowledge in the spheres of medicines, mathematics, and astronomy. They also challenged erroneous beliefs, including those spread by the church. The concept of humanism made man and everything concerning him the most important subject of study. Thus, Renaissance scholars and artists based their works not only on divine subjects but also on man's needs, his emotions, and his life on earth. This found new expressions in various spheres like painting, literature, sculpture, theatre, and music. Painting and sculpture flourished, and artists developed new methods to make their drawings look lifelike. My dear students, let's begin with the Protestant Reformation movement. What do you mean by Reformation? It is called Protestant Reformation. It's the religious revolution that took place in the Western Church in the 16th century. What is the background of Protestant Reformation movement? The Roman Catholic Church, led by the Pope, has exercised unquestioned authority over the rulers and people of Western Europe. The Pope maintained his own army, waged wars, collected taxes from the lands owned by the Church, and laid down norms and traditions that were binding on all Christians. A Christian who disobeyed or questioned church norms was proclaimed a sinner. and was denied all church services and was condemned to hell after death. The sinner was severely punished and could even be burned alive. The church had accumulated a lot of money by charging people in various forms. These included the tithe or 1/10 of the income of every Christian. Moreover, it was a common practice for Christians to confess their sins before a priest. The church used to issue letters of pardon called indulgences, which promised remission from the punishments for sin. The sinner could do penance in the form of a special service or go to the place of pilgrimage. In fact, Pope Leo X raised enough money through the sale of indulgences to build the St. Peter's Basilica Church in Rome. The Pope and the higher clergy became corrupt and began to lead lives of luxury. After seeing so much problem, so much corruption, which has led to the problems for the common people. Now let's discuss the role of Martin Luther. The church came under criticism and a movement for its reformation began, known as the Protestant Reformation movement. It began in the year of 1517 under the leadership of a German priest called Martin Luther and spread to most countries of Europe. Martin Luther challenged the church practice of selling indulgences and attacked the immoral life of the higher clergy. He published the 95 Theses in which he listed his arguments against the sale of indulgences. He nailed it on the door of the church in Wittenberg and invited people to an open debate on his statements. He circulated printed copies of his work among the people not only in Germany but in other parts of Europe as well. The Pope ordered Martin Luther to withdraw his accusations or false punishment, but Luther refused. He was declared an outlaw and heretic. Ordinarily, those declared heretics were put to death by burning. In Luther's case, many factors, including public support, made such punishments impossible. Even he was helped by Frederick III, known as Frederick the Wise, a prince of the Holy Roman Empire and an elector of Saxony in Germany. The elector was a very powerful person, since he had a right to participate in the election of the emperor, that is the German king. With his help, Luther went into hiding. Some years later, Luther translated and published the Bible in German. He stressed on individual faith as the only way to salvation and heaven. Many German people and rulers agreed with Martin Luther and began to separate from the Roman Catholic Church. The Protestant Reformation movement split Christianity into the Roman Catholic Church, centered in Rome, and independent Protestant churches in different European kingdoms. Each ruler became the head of the Protestant church within his kingdom. The Protestant Reformation movement has a lasting impact on Europe and its people. It brought about changes in their religious beliefs, practices, culture, and society. Education became widespread as people wanted to read the Bible themselves. Translation of the Bible into various local languages led to the growth of national literatures. By the end of the 16th century, the authority of the Roman Catholic Church was considerably weakened and the concept of individual freedom gained ground. This laid the foundations of modern democracy. So my dear students, with that, I am completing part 1 of chapter 2. The remaining chapter will be done in part 2. Thank you and have a nice day.